something's got to give, And then we had this moment, this epiphany where it was like, wait a minute, you've been teaching people how to do small apartments using joint venture. How can we figure out how to get the fees like in the same fashion, So that's when we really opened up our mind to, she said, you know what, I'm going to disrupt this education industry and we're going to go and we're going to teach everybody how to do this in an A to Z manner. And I was like, yes. And we'll form a community. Yeah. And it was like, insert battle cry here.
Welcome to the Creating Wealth Podcast, where Kyle Curtin takes you on an extraordinary journey alongside renowned multifamily real estate sponsors and syndication experts from every corner of the United States. We teach you how to harness the power of passive real estate investing and witness the transformation of your wealth building strategy. Let's create wealth together.
What's up, guys? Welcome to episode 140 of the Creating Wealth Podcast. I am your host, Kyle Curtin. Today, we get the great pleasure to be joined by Jen and Stacey Conkey. They're an amazing multifamily duo based out of Orlando, Florida, that have a true passion to elevate others as well. What's going on, guys? I'm super excited to have you on here and jump into your story.
Oh, we're
Thanks for having us, Kyle.
Absolutely. Yeah, like I mentioned, very excited to kind of jump in and learn about you guys, and to kind of jump in, I usually like to leave it open to the guests, like, I guess, where you want to start off in your story or how you got into multifamily. Wherever you want to jump in is totally cool.
Totally. I think that it's probably going to be helpful to give a little bit of context. So I'll go ahead and get started. Sure. I'm Jen of the Jen and Stacy. So started over 20 years ago. Personally, I was at home. My brother came over and he said, hey, get in the car with me. Let's go to the store. I did. And after 6 hours of driving around, he was talking about flipping for profits. And I didn't know what he meant. But 6 hours later, we were at his house creating a business model that we could go flip together as a business, a side hustle, because I was in corporate America at the time. But that was my introduction to real estate investing. And it took off from there, doing 2 to 4 units. And then it was in 2015 that I had met Stacy, who was already in real estate doing apartment investing. And I was like, I needed to learn her ways, but I'll let you share your side of the story.
My journey started 20 years ago, a little over 20 years ago, 2003. And, I read the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, like many people do. And I was like, wait, this is very logical. I want to do this. And so I just started learning and, invested in my education. It was not very good, but invested in my education, and it gave me enough to get started. But I think one of the big differentiations between mine and Jen's journey is that where I lived at the time, I was trying to buy rentals, but it was too expensive and it was too competitive. I lived in Sacramento, California at the time, and I couldn't make it happen. And I got introduced early on to a mentor who lived in Canada but invested in the States, and he did it remotely. And so I kind of latched onto that and learned everything I could. And I started doing real estate remotely right from the very beginning.
Which was fascinating to me because I was stuck in my backyard in California as well. And I wasn't making much money. It was like you had to put a lot of capital in to get very, very little return. And it was a little risky. And it was also just, I was doing it all. I was literally swinging the hammer. So learning the remote style of how to do it was like, it was epic, because I was in corporate America being, it was like a regional role where I had 12 buildings in the Midwest, just to simplify the terms. But I basically would fly there and talk to them about improving their building performance. So I had a really good strategy for managing or leading teams remotely. And then Stacy's aspect of real estate, we just kind of merged it together and we took off from there. It was much more scalable model.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's incredibly cool. Especially, like you mentioned, Jen, first jumping in with, kind of like jumping in that way, like hearing it from your brother and that type of thing. And like this crazy new, like real estate world and everything. And yeah, exactly. Like kind of going from that, super hands-on, super, like landlord, swinging the hammer and that type of thing to, hearing from Jen, like the complete other side of the spectrum of like, here's how you can buy like crazy properties, like all over, and like manage everything from afar and all that. It's incredibly interesting. and there's definitely quite the learning curve, from having that mindset. There we go. I think I was lagging a little bit. Having that original mindset of like, it required your involvement, for everything to continue rolling, to, having the teams under you, having the networks in place, the boots on the ground, etc., to keep scaling up and keep your bandwidth at the same time.
Yeah, it's a lot to juggle. Definitely.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Stacey, I totally hear you as well, about being near an expensive market, especially trying to jump in with, smaller buildings, because I'm like 20 minutes north of Boston. And
geez,
yeah. So I get where you're coming from,
expensive, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, the cost per unit is like freaking insane over here, and it's unbelievable.
A lot of the people that end up coming to us who we end up like, coaching and helping to close their deals, they live in expensive markets, and they're usually already real estate investors. By the time they come to us, they've usually done some flips or single family home rentals, but they're just like, I can't, like, the numbers don't work where I live, and I don't understand this remote thing, but if I'm going to do multifamily, I'm going to have to learn it. And so that's what they come to us. And so not only do we help them get started with buying apartment buildings, but we teach them how to do it remotely so they can really have location freedom. They can live wherever they want, but invest where the numbers work.
Yeah, no, 100%, and it's funny you say that too, because like it's often crossed my mind, of taking, some of the capital and stuff from up in this neck of the woods and going to some of those markets that have a much lower cost per door and being able to get a lot more bang for your buck in other markets, I mean, especially to your guys' point as well about, if you have some of those investors, whether they're active, passive, whatever the case may be, and they're very particular on, the types of markets and the population growth and like red state versus blue states, like however, people like to kind of pick their investment locations. And I'm excited to kind of dig in, like, how did you guys, kind of come up with the idea for the Remote Multifamily Investing Academy? How was that kind of born?
Oh, this is, I think our origin story is probably the best. And it's because when we first started dating and I found out that she knew the remote method that she learned from that Canadian mentor, I was intrigued because I had been banging my head on the wall, right? And
yeah.
There was 12 years that I was banging my head on the wall. All I kept thinking was, man, I wish I just had people that I could ask about this. Like, I wish I had a community that I belonged to that could help me with these things and get different perspectives, right? So I had always wanted a community and a sense of belonging to something that was bigger than me in a sense, and a brain trust. And then Stacey's journey, she already mentioned about her education in multifamily, that it was subpar. It wasn't what she needed.
It was crap.
Okay. There we go.
Let's just be real. So it was crap.
Based on that and the conversations that we were having in the very beginning when we first met, I just knew she was very passionate about the fact that she got an education that didn't fulfill what she needed. And like the A to Z wasn't there for her. And I had always wanted to do apartment investing at the syndication level and figure out, how do I get these big acquisition fees and things that they keep talking about? Like, that was sexy to me.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do that really badly. And we ended up going and getting trained on the big syndications and how to do all of those things. And, when it really came down to implementing it and connecting the dots and moving forward with it, there was just like a lot of reality sunk in when it came to hiring an SEC attorney, doing a PPM. It's like a 5,000 page document that I don't even understand. Then getting all of that in place, doing the financing, and then to find out, oh my God, I need a sponsor. That's falling through. It's just so much red tape, so many hurdles, that at one point we were like, oh my God, something's got to give,
Yeah.
And then we had this moment, this epiphany where it was like, wait a minute, you've been teaching people how to do small apartments using joint venture. How can we figure out how to get the fees like in the same fashion, So that's when we really opened up our mind to, she said, you know what, I'm going to disrupt this education industry, and we're going to go and we're going to teach everybody how to do this in an A to Z manner. And I was like, yes. And we'll form a community, you know? Yeah. And it was like, insert battle cry here.
Wow.
And when we did that, it was like, this is awesome, because now what we can teach them is doing this joint venture. And then now we also are figuring out how can we structure it very similar to, you know, a 506B or C, but not having all of the red tape, because everybody has an active role, and it's not necessarily that same exact model, but there's still ways to underwrite the deal to get the acquisition fee, disposition fee, asset management fee. So the structure, all the benefits of syndication without all the red tape.
Extra.
Ultimately.
Yeah.
Right. So that's how it got started. When we first did this, I was like, you know, I was a corporate executive for so long, developed that remote leadership strategy to get performance from across the country. And then we use that to apply it with real estate and really put together a program and said, you know what, now we've got it. We've got an entire package, all things real estate. It's all remote. Why don't we just be the remote multifamily investing academy, and we'll get all these folks to come in and build a community. And that's literally how it was launched. We wanted to just get out there and disrupt the entire industry and do it on our terms, in a simplistic A to Z way. But I mean, it's simple. It's not easy, but it is a simple framework to understand. And the way that we try to differentiate and break it down is like, there's 3 roles within multifamily when you're doing this, and it's acquisitions manager, capital raiser, and asset manager. We like to simplify those roles and help you identify which role is best for your skill set and what you love to do. And then get into that role, stay in that role, soar with your strengths, and then form a team. And then we help them identify other people in the academy that are a good fit for them by speed dating and doing all these other really fun, interesting things that I'm sure we'll get into later. But that's how, for a long story shorter, or even longer, that's how the academy was done. Yeah.
Wow. I'm in love with that from so many different angles. You know, I mean, especially from, you know, just the wanting to, you know, leverage the knowledge and experience and stuff that you guys had and be able to share that with a lot of other people, create a community in the meantime. That's definitely a passion of mine as well, is like, you know, just collaborating with people in lots of different ways and playing the game together. And that's such a powerful thing, you know, and especially at a very large scale type of level, like large multifamily, you know, because it's like, you know, a lot of folks exactly, you know, are where, you know, you were before, Jen, of like beating your head off the wall, trying to like, you know, do everything that comes up at you and that type of thing. And are like, oh, like how the hell, you know, are these people buying like 100-unit buildings? Like, like it doesn't make sense. You know, and
that's honestly what we realized. We can do joint venture, but not on a 100-unit building. Right. Like that's way too big. And we need to have way too many people in that joint venture, and we limit it 5 or less. So we go for a smaller approach when we're doing joint venture. And we teach people, like, don't start with syndications. Start here instead. Get into an asset that you can learn how to manage well, and it doesn't get away from you, so that you're not losing investor money, but like stair step into and scale into syndication, which we also teach. We do teach syndication. We're actually syndicators ourselves. We raise capital for syndications, but our message is don't start there. Start with joint venture, with something you can manage, and then stair step into syndication.
Yeah. I love that. I feel like you know, building that foundation, building that baseline and kind of gradually moving your way up is absolutely key. And it did kind of blow my mind, to be honest with you. Like, you know, hearing like first jumping into the syndication space for me, it was like earlier this year. And it was always interesting, like, you know, watching and consuming, you know, some of this content of like folks just jumping into the real estate industry, or the investing sector rather, going right to syndication. I was like, damn, like that's like a big step to take. Like, it's definitely not impossible, but like, damn, man, like, you know,
right. Very hard to succeed. At least Absolutely. In my opinion, I think that sometimes people don't realize there's an option. And that's part of like, we're trying to, our front facing message so much is, if you're new to apartment investing, start here instead, because it seems like all of the other educators out there, they lead with syndication. And I know by going through syndication, the complexity of it is astounding. Yep. And if you're adding that on top of just learning how to do an apartment building, I feel like it's a recipe for absolute failure. Every once in a while you get somebody who can do it, but to go from zero to syndicated deal, you have so many opportunities to not only lose your investors' money because you don't know what you're doing, and just to get set back. So I don't know, Jen and I just feel like if people can get that first deal done, even if it's 10 units, I know 10 units isn't sexy, but holy cow, it's like you will be someone who hasn't done real estate before, apartment investing, you'd be shocked at how much you learn from that 10 unit. It will blow your absolute mind. It's just, there's so much that you learn, even from a small building. And the great thing is, whatever you learn, you get to take that wisdom with you to the next one. So maybe the next one's a 20 unit or a 30 unit. And then you go maybe to a 60 unit. And by the fourth one, you're above 100 units. But now you truly know what you're doing. And you've stair-stepped. And now you can actually get financing without getting a sponsor because you have experience. So we're really trying to get the word out there so people don't step into a world that just sets them up for failure because it's too complex when you're new. Anyway, and starting with small building joint venture is just gives people confidence and credibility and experience, and it really sets them up for success. I think that's why we have so much success in our academy, is because we are just like adamant, like start here. We promise you will have so much more success. Don't go for 100 units from day one. Let's start with something that's, under 20 units. Just get that one done.
Absolutely.
And they get so much success as a result of it. And then they build up and then they end up doing syndication, 3 or 4 deals in. Yeah.
That's huge, especially to your point as well. I mean, I started off with a 3-family, a house hack and around like my neck of the woods. And I mean, even from that 1 3-family on a very, 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 smaller scale, like the amount of lessons that I learned is crazy.
Yes.
And it's one of those things. It's like, although it may be, a lot less like sexy, if you will, like the amount of value and education and, lessons and that type of thing that come from some of those experiences is, starts to give you some stripes right away at exactly like you mentioned, like a much smaller scale where you're not risking your friends and family's capital as well, which is tremendous.
Yeah. When we started the academy, the first program we started with was 2 to 4 units. We launched a mastermind with 2 to 4 units. Because I was so passionate about the person who was like just getting started, like just new, that I was like, people just need to start with like a duplex, and same thing. I feel the same way about that as I do about a 10 unit for people going to apartments. Like the amount that you'll learn if you're really new to real estate, because you're learning just about comps and appraisal and getting financing and closing and how to review a closing statement. Like there's so much to learn. But usually when people are moving into not always, but usually they're moving into apartments, they've done at least a single family or something before. So at least they know like real estate basics. Yeah. Then it's like, that's just, you can get into a small building. You'll have plenty to learn from. And all that just sets you up for such a great future of growth. But you're right, Kyle, even a triplex, like that first time, it's like, whoa, you don't even realize how much there is to learn. It's crazy.
100%. And I really like something that you guys mentioned earlier as well about, kind of boiling it down to like those 3 different roles. And I guess kind of like the trifecta of, which one you may have more of a strength in, and like doubling down on your strength and, finding folks that can complement the other strengths and making that like crazy team. And I've always loved that, you know what I mean? And it's, just doubling down on the strengths that you're good at and like your unique ability and, the other million synonyms for that all the books and stuff use, and not trying to like be more well-rounded, but like, I don't know, just like finding folks that, succeed in those other areas to complement the area that you have success in, to like really have a fighting force, moving forward on whatever you're moving forward on.
Absolutely. I feel like it minimizes the opportunity for mistakes. Yeah. If we are in the lane of our strengths and appealing to that, and if everybody's in their opportunity zone, like, but when we're all in our strength zone, then the opportunities they're decreased. And now we can move forward while mitigating some risk for overlooking things. Like, I'm not a details person. I'm just not. So if we said, Jen, you've got to learn how to do the entire thing, I would probably barf in a trash can
Yeah.
or pray to the universe to send me a boil on my body somewhere, because I would rather do that than get into the underwriting tool, right? But that's where Stacy's really good. And we have a lot of people that are just really good at spreadsheets and calculators and numbers and patterns and doing all those things. And me, I'm good at seeing the numbers, making connections, deciding whether or not, like, what's the upside, what's the downside, can we live with the downside, what are we going to do, what's the ABC plan to mitigate the downside, like all of that's my strength, is the strategy behind it. And like, what's the market looking like, where's it going to be in a few years, what are the surrounding markets looking like, 40 miles out, what is all of the macro stuff look like? I'm really good with macro, she's really good with micro, but if you gave me the micro, we would fail miserably, or I would run out of time and I wouldn't be able to acquire more properties because I would be so worried that, I got to go learn this one skill. But do I, or should I leverage somebody else that already knows it on my team? And now when everybody's in their strengths, we're just going for it. And you're really just unstoppable. It's an unstoppable force. But when we're trying to learn and, figure out how to strengthen up our opportunity zones, that's where there's a lot of opportunity for mistakes. So that's why I really love identifying the 3 roles and helping people find out which one's the best for them based on their skills and what they love.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, like, the thing that comes to mind is that Who Not How book. If you guys have read that one, that one's
just finished it.
Big favorite of mine.
Yeah, that was such a good book.
I guess I have to read that one.
Oh, you're gonna love it.
Yeah,
you're gonna just be like, yes. It's gonna land so well.
Yeah, I think I feel like you already like kind of figured it out, Jen. So like it might just kind of be like a little icing on the cake. Like,
that's why she's gonna love it. It's how she operates already naturally. She's a natural leader.
That's awesome. So what kind of take me through, like, so say someone jumps into the mastermind, starts to like learn and network and stuff like that. I guess take me kind of through like an example of like a JV. Like, do you guys like source the deals, or like do people from the community source? Like, how do you kind of like put one together, I guess you could say?
So, okay. Like, so if within the academy, like what does a typical thing look like? Okay. So let's say, for example, Lindsay goes, so everybody is sourcing their own deal. Well, everybody who's in acquisitions, when people come in and learn, we teach them the whole process. Like, they go through all the videos because we teach them A to Z. So they watch all the videos, they understand the whole process. And then through Jen outlining like what your different skill sets are and kind of where that fits, then they'll hone in. So someone who's like into acquisitions, they're going to be talking to brokers in the markets that they're looking to invest in and getting deals and doing some quick underwriting to make sure that the deal makes sense, making offers, etc. Once they get the deal under contract and they're doing due diligence and it looks like, okay, this is going to be viable, then what they'll do is they'll come in, and usually within the community first, because that's the easiest place to find partners in your deals, and just say, hey, I have a 15 unit under contract, blah, blah, blah. If you're interested in connecting and possibly partnering on this, let me know and I'll send you my investor presentation. And so that's kind of the technicalities of it. But it's funny, one of the things, like, Jen wanted community out of this whole thing. And I was like, I didn't understand, because that was never a thing for me. So when I saw it starting to happen, I was like, oh my gosh, this is huge. And Jen's like, this is what I was saying. So, when someone, gets a deal, and it's scary in the beginning when you don't know anyone and you feel like you're on an island. Real estate investors, it's not like we're all over the place. We're kind of like sporadic. And so when someone gets a deal and they're like, oh man, I don't really know anyone. Well, they come to a weekly call. So there's a weekly group coaching call. So people get to know each other through that. And then we do a networking breakout room every call. But then once a quarter, we had been doing like a quarterly fulfillment event where we bring, let all the students come, and not only do we do education, we do more advanced education, but we do all sorts of like curated networking opportunities. Like Jen mentioned, the speed dating within that. And we do power hours. And then we come up with like really fun activities that they go deeper. They're intended to go deeper, but they're fun activities. Like we did Top Golf once. We do a photo scavenger hunt. Coming up with this next one. Escape rooms.
Nice.
We did the racing.
Yeah,
called the go-kart racing. So we'll do different things like that. Like once the conference day is done. So it's at night. So it really gives people an opportunity. not just to learn and be immersed in real estate around people that are just like them, the other real estate weirdos out there. Not everyone saying, what are you doing? You can't do that. All those other things that you hear when you're new. It lets them be around their people who are all lifting each other up, but in a way that it's like, we're not talking about business. We're out just having fun together, or we're doing a challenge together, like the escape rooms. And it lets people get to know each other at a really deep level, and something that I didn't expect to come out. But as soon as COVID opened up a little bit, we actually just invited everybody over to our house in Florida because we had just moved. So we had a housewarming party, and we had, I don't know, like 30 of our mastermind members came. And out of that, so we had a really fun time getting together, but out of that ended up coming like a whole bunch of joint venture partnerships over the next 2 to 3 months. And when we looked at every single deal in the academy, we were like, oh my gosh, literally every single partnership, they were there in person together. Wow. And that's where they met for the first time in person.
And I made them play hide and seek in the dark.
Yeah, we played extreme.
Like I made them behave like children and have fun together.
Yeah.
So the walls would come down and they could get to know each other better. And it was just a real curated experience. And then as a result of that, they formed some pretty good relationships and bonds. And you're right.
Like every time we do an event, you see over the next couple of months, you start seeing the deals popping up and the partnerships, and you're like, sure enough, they either met for the first time, or they got to spend more time with the people that are part of their network. And it's just an incredible thing. So that's usually how the joint ventures happen. It's just the relationship building that happens. And even one person found the deal, someone else might have capital, but they didn't have time, or they hadn't found a deal yet. Well, that's a perfect opportunity for the person with some capital to get together with the person that has a deal, and then they get to do the deal together. They both get to learn, they both get the credibility, they both get the experience, and now they're both ready to go to the next level, after that deal. So it's awesome. It really is awesome.
That's incredible, guys. That's an absolutely impressive community that you guys have built. And I love that part of the human experience too, like just in terms of like building relationships and that kind of thing. Cause like you guys were mentioning, we're a bunch of like weirdo real estate investors like get together, like business, multifamily, hoorah, But when you start to go into like some of those different environments that's like outside of the business, like that's when you can have the walls go down, have people become more comfortable, start to have some of those deeper conversations, build some deeper relationships, which will then loop back to the business side and create some pretty powerful things. It's super cool.
Yeah, ends up being like family. Like our students, when they get together, it's like a family reunion every time. And they are just like ecstatic, or they're the first time they actually meet in person, because they've been seeing on Zoom. Like it's one thing you see someone on Zoom every week, you totally feel like you know them. Yeah. And then you see them in person for the first time. It's like, oh my gosh, it's like they're running through a field. So much love. But yeah, it's just the community aspect is good. And I think it really, when I hear about Jen's journey and like where she struggled and not having anyone to talk to, I feel so grateful for our students to have this, because there wasn't even Zoom back then. No, there wasn't. So it's even if there was a community, it's not like today where you can really connect with people. Yeah. And it's just not the lonely journey that it has been in the past for people who are in the academy, in that community. And it helps. I just feel like it helps them succeed.
Yeah, it's such a strong bond. We've been accused of creating a cult.
It's a multifamily cult.
I'm like, yes, it's a cult. You want to come over? We make you play tag.
Yeah, we have a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny you say that too about like the cult analogy, because like I use that so much, because like I feel like a lot of people in our type of world like have those like quote unquote like cult like kind of groups and stuff. But it's like, not like drink the Kool-Aid, but like it's like make more money together. And yeah, right. It's funny. You know what I mean? It's hilarious.
It's a different vibe. Yeah.
all of society doesn't understand it, doesn't do it, doesn't. So it's hard. So it's exciting when you find people that are like you, because we are all not normal the way that, we're not trying to just have a job for the rest of our life. Like we want more. We're willing to do more and become more in order to have more and then be able to give more. And it's like, you just don't find that many people. So when you find your people, your tribe, it's like, And our students are our tribe. Like we love them as much as they love us and they love each other.
Yeah.
Because they're our people. Like, it's awesome.
Exactly.
Yeah, you get it, when you meet the person, like Stacey saying, your people. I can't tell you how many struggles I went through when it's a weekend and I'm off of work and everybody's like, let's go do the club, let's go do the things. And I'm like, no, I'm actually in the middle of this flip over here. Why are you doing that? And it's like, when you're trying to climb up and you're stepping into a new identity, a new path. Yeah. But you're kind of leaving behind in a sense. And then there's like all kinds of feelings that come with that. Like I feel guilty or disloyal. And because I'm leaving my other tribe of people that they're my foundation, or I grew up with them, or they're my family, or whatever it is. And you start to feel this tug. And if you let that tug sink in, you start to think about giving up. And that part is not okay, because then you're ultimately giving up on your dreams instead of just going for it. And I think that's why I longed for it so much, was that I can't imagine everybody out there that's trying not to have somebody that they can identify with and have a good conversation with. And, you can go to a ton of events where you meet people, but it sometimes can be a little superficial. But when you want to go deep with people and really get to know them and build wealth with them, and it's like they get you and you get them, and it's like you feel like you've been together for a long time, or you know them from a previous, that feels amazing. And then there's a trust there. So I don't know. I think that because there's a lot of folks out there trying to do it on their own, they might not be taking a team approach. They feel alone. They might give up. And if you're out there, it doesn't have to be that way, is what I'm trying to say. Find your tribe, and it's okay to step into that and just hang on loosely to the other one, until you get your bearings. But that guilt of feeling like you're leaving the others behind, it's real. So, and I've been there, and that's why I wanted the community. And I think that it serves people to have that as an outlet to deal and cope with that.
Yeah, I completely agree, Jen. And that, like tugging, that internal, trying to figure out what the heck is going on with past relationships, current relationships, future relationships, is something that I've been trying to still figure out over the past 5-ish years or so. And it's it's exactly like you said. And I love the way you phrased it, of we go from, especially, folks in the self-development ecosystem of any sort, I feel like it's, as you progress, you start to grow into that new version of yourself, that new identity. And, you're kind of forced to leave certain things behind. So it's how do you deal with that? And I love having that conversation, because I feel like it doesn't happen enough. I feel like more than likely, most of us, ends up going through some version of that, with certain relationships in our lives and folks that we might have hung around with, a few years ago, but not really doing the same thing now, and trying to navigate that whole thing. And people don't necessarily understand, why do you not want to go out with us and drink anymore? Why do you want to XYZ? And it's a very interesting part of the entrepreneurial and, I mean, really self-growth journey that I feel should be talked about a lot more often, because I feel it's such a heavy, part of it.
One of the things that helped me get through it is I think about a tree, and you think about just the nature cycle of nature it's always, and when you're growing, you got to shed to grow. Right. And so every year trees lose their leaves. Every time they discard the leaves, and then they have the energy to continue to grow up, and then they grow new leaves, and then those leaves fall. It's a cycle, and it's no different for us as human beings. As we grow, there's things we need to let go. You have to release to receive, and to continue to grow. So it's we really can't fight that when we're trying to grow. The only alternate choice is to not grow and to stay there with some crusty, dusty leaves. And that's just not an option for me.
No, that's not cool.
That analogy just helps me. Okay, this is one of the, it's fall, and I need to let the leaves just fall and focus on what do I need to grow come spring.
Yeah, exactly. And an analogy that I want to add in as well, that one of my buddies has mentioned to me in the past, is if you're saying yes to one thing, you're saying no to something else. So it's if you're saying yes to the old identity, that's maybe preventing you from moving on to that next version of yourself. And trying to figure that out is always interesting, right?
Really.
Yeah.
Especially if you're leaving an identity that is afraid of their own success.
Yeah.
And trying to step into an identity that you're going on a journey and it's nothing but success. And
Exactly.
how do you create that new identity so that you're not self-sabotaging? Because sometimes when we fear success, we fear the responsibility that comes with it. So you really got to step into a whole new level of leadership of self before committing to that. And when you get on that path, like there's a glass ceiling that we keep just trying to shatter, right? And the first time you shatter it, it feels great. And then you've got to keep going deeper, but there's always going to be one. It's just going to keep elevating. And I don't know. I mean, I wish I could say that there's never going to be a glass ceiling for me, but there always will be, and I'll just have to keep working through it and keep growing. But I think that the biggest thing is that if you identify what you're truly afraid of, if it's fear of failure, or if it's fear of success, or if it's fear of not being enough, or which would also be failing, it's usually just those two, and which one are you most afraid of? And what would it take for you to step into the identity where you're not afraid of that anymore? Because if you face it, everything you want's on the other side. And that's really hard for most people to do, really difficult.
Absolutely. And that's where the beautiful power of community comes in, and exactly, like you mentioned, Jen, like it's such a powerful thing. And the thing that comes to mind, right, that is kind of like unsettling right now is like, imagine how many people out there that played the game of business, whichever facet that looks like, they played it by themselves for so long and ended up, succumbing to the thoughts and advice of those around them that wasn't really the advice that they needed to hear, to instead of throwing in the towel to like double down on it and keep going in, and now like they'll never really get to know. So I feel like that's such a powerful thing is like, adding, creating these communities and attracting, the folks and just showing them that there's another option. And there's a lot of people that, have that are very, very open to supporting each other and, mindset and monetarily and that type of thing. And that you're not alone. And like, if you want to give it a shot, like all the resources are here to make that happen, and it's not going to be you like struggling through the learning curves and getting kicked around over and over. And, there'll be the right people around you to be able to go back to.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. But, yeah, no, I absolutely love it, guys. Seriously. And I was reading a little bit of, about your guys's like website and LinkedIn and stuff like that. And I saw as well that the community is pretty large. There's the Facebook group with like 27,000 people in it. Hell yeah.
Yes, we definitely grew. I remember when Stacy first opened that Facebook group back in 2019, and we celebrated the first 100 people like maniacs, community! Like we were so excited.
Exactly.
I remember it. I remember the day exactly. It was pretty cool. And then 300. It was fun to grow that group for sure. And it's a pretty cool place. Our students like to be in there too. But
yeah, I hear you. Do I guess what was kind of a challenge that came up early on when it came to like growing that community? Like, did things kind of start off like, doing okay and word of mouth traveled a good amount? And like, how did you guys kind of like attack that starting?
Yeah, it was just really, you got to name it what people are going to be searching for because they're looking for their people. So you got to name it what they're searching for. And then you've got to make sure that in order for Facebook to suggest the group as a suggestible group, there's like all these rules you got to follow. So we just got really clear on what the rules were so that we didn't violate anything. So as soon as we dialed that in, Facebook suggested us as a group for a long time. We also did several challenges and would give away Academy scholarships as a prize.
Gotcha.
For winning the scholarship, for promoting it and putting the group out and, into the other social media ethers. And people would earn points for that. And then at the end of the challenge, we would announce, hey, this is the scholarship winner. We did that throughout 2020 to really build the group. And by the time it was I think we got 12,000 members when we finally just started turning on ads to fill the group. Yeah.
That's super cool. Wow.
Because by that time, it was no longer really suggesting us as a group. I think it got so large
Big.
that Zuckerberg was like, you're going to have to pay
I don't
for
think so.
Yeah.
Wow. That's incredible. I love that too, because I have a much, much smaller Facebook group with like 700-ish plus minus people in it. And it's always been like something in the back of my mind, like trying to figure out like, how do I like just grow this a lot more? And to your point, like, yeah, like there is the, paid advertising and stuff, but like, I just, trying to post a lot more in it and that type of thing and have people like invite their friends and stuff. But yeah, I love that. Just being like a lot more present and giving a lot more value and having fun with people and interaction and that kind of thing is always a lot of fun. Absolutely.
I'll tell you one thing that I did a lot of in the first year when we were growing the Facebook group. That might help you as you're doing it. But I would go into other groups that would have most likely have the same kind of person that I thought would be interested in multifamily. And I would just go into other communities and I would just serve. I would answer questions and reply to comments and things like that. And people would end up being like, oh, and they'd send me a friend request. So I'd start building my friends, my Facebook friends, through just interacting in other communities and, trying to be a resource and guide and give advice. And then I go to our group and I would invite all my friends. So that was I'm positive that was for the first couple thousand people. That was a big part of it.
Yep.
Gotcha.
So it wasn't just what was happening inside the group. It was just getting more exposure, but doing it in a way that served.
Yeah.
And that made it awesome because like the first 2,500 people in the group, we had a relationship with. Right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, we're either teaching you how to be an active investor or you're passively investing in our deals. So either way, it's a win,
Yeah.
We try to do it with our messaging to attract the right person, no matter what business we're trying to do, because all we are is passionate about investing.
Yeah.
And it's fun. So that group really provides that container for you, as long as you're raising capital for 506Cs though.
Yeah. Not B. Yeah. Wow. That's incredible, guys. Seriously. Oh my goodness. I want to thank you guys so much for coming on here. This was a ton of fun, seriously. And like I mentioned, time and time again, it's incredibly impressive, what you guys have built so far, and very excited to kind of watch it continue growing and helping out a lot more people.
Awesome. Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
It's a pleasure.
We're on like social media and stuff. Can you guys, well, actually you kind of told me, but I'll tag anything you want down below, website, wherever you want.
Yeah. The best place to find us is at warriorsofwealth.com.
Sure.
Yeah. That's the best place.
Perfect. Awesome.
Cool.
Thank you very much, guys. That was a lot of fun.
Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you.
That's a wrap for today's episode. We want to thank you for being a valued listener of the Creating Wealth Podcast. Make sure to visit www.creatingwealth.com to connect with us. Dive into our ever-expanding library of informative blogs. Get access to our private investor portal and explore a wide range of additional valuable resources. Stay tuned for our next episode as we continue to create wealth together.